Perfect. Welcome, everybody. I'll just give it a few minutes for everyone to join. I hope that you're having a great start to your day. Yeah, we're pretty much halfway through the Wednesday, almost the end of the month. So hopefully
Yeah.
May has been a good month. I know that April was a bit of an interesting one for everyone. So May, hopefully, coming to some of you are end of quarter. Hopefully it's been good. And yeah, that you're having a good last couple of days. So yeah, we'll just give it a minute or two for everyone to join and we can take it from there.
But Blake, most importantly, it's almost payday.
It's almost payday. That is always the greatest part of the month.
Indeed.
Exactly. Perfect. All right. So if anyone, yeah, let us know in the chat, yeah, where you guys are from, all of that. Hi to all the joiners. And if at any point you guys have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A just to pop in a question. We'll have some time at the
Oh,
end of this
nice.
webinar to go ahead and answer any of the questions that you have. All
Nice.
right,
Welcome
great.
from Lebanon. Nice that you joined us today.
Yeah, lovely. All right. So yeah, look, we've got everyone who's jumping in and will the rest of the people come in. So let's kick off. I know that time is precious and we can jump in. So yeah, welcome everyone to our latest webinar. You guys are very aware today we're talking about winning those closed lost deals again. I just wanted to do a quick introduction. My name is Blake. I am a growth consultant at BBD Boom. So I work within the sales department and I am very much in the day-to-day management of what you guys do as well. But I am joined by my co-host Alex. Alex, would you like to do a little bit of an intro?
Of course. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alex, and I'm one of the HubSpot consultants here at BBD Boom. So I focus on consulting and implementation within, obviously, our customers' HubSpot portals. So welcome, everyone, and hope you find today's session insightful.
Perfect. Yeah. So, guys, look, before we begin, I do want to just run through the agenda. Obviously, we're going to be starting off about why deals go to close loss, looking at all of those reasons. Then we'll jump into how to capture your insights within HubSpot, and most importantly, what to do with those insights. And then finally, we'll wrap up today's webinar with some Q&As. So if you have anything, again, for those newcomers, feel free to, if you have a question, pop it in the Q&A section and we can answer it at the end. All right, perfect. So let's just jump off. Firstly, what I'm going to do is I've just launched a poll. It will be good for you guys to just answer any of that. Really, there's three questions that I would like you guys to go through. The first is, do you currently track your closed lost reasons? So firstly, yes, we do it in HubSpot. Yes, but maybe not in a structured way, maybe an Excel spreadsheet. You just jot down some notes in your notepad, or no. From there as well, do you follow up with any of those closed lost opportunities, or is it kind of one of those cases that when it goes to closed lost, you kind of put it into the ether and forget about it? And if they happen to reach out, then you'll reactivate it from there. And finally, have you ever won a closed lost deal before? And yeah, uh, we want to hear all about that. So I'm going to leave the poll to run for this webinar. So yeah, you can have some time to think about it if you haven't answered it, and we'll close it off towards the end. Perfect. So let's start off with the basics. Why do deals go to close lost? Well, there is a host of different reasons, and it's important for you to be able to categorize these. Firstly, we obviously come across the most common issue, which is budget issues. People will reach out to us or we'll start a conversation, and then very quickly we'll realize that maybe their budget cannot handle the opportunity that is at hand. Perhaps they had a little bit of money that was then pulled from upper management, or the business has restructured. And unfortunately, that money that they had for the deal has been pulled and they haven't been able to proceed. Next, we have a common one where we've lost it to a competitor. Very seldomly we are looking at deals where we are just the only person in on it. They often like to go ahead and look at different competitors, compare, pricing, delivery, all of those kind of things as well. And so we might often find that, due to certain issues, we might, lose it to a competitor. We also find that sometimes there was a mismatch qualification. Perhaps we thought this was a viable opportunity or a viable company that we've worked with, but as we've gone down the discovery route, we found that actually, our services or products cannot meet their requirements, and so there was just a bit of mismatch qualification, leading the deal to eventually go to closed lost. We've also found that a common one is poor timing or no urgency. So obviously from our side, many of you might have KPIs. You might want to look to close things off on a monthly or quarterly basis. However, from a prospect side of things, they might just be browsing. There's no urgency. It's kind of something they might want to have, but not need to have. And, over time, it might just go stale, which leads us to our fifth reason, which is they have just completely ghosted you. Now, I know I'm not the only one who has gone ahead and sent through a quote thinking this is a perfect deal. It's going to go ahead and be closed and, happy days, all to find out that they've just gone ahead and stopped responding to you. And the classic, just following up on the quotes and all of that, giving them a call, and they just seem to not get back to you. So eventually you're going to have to go ahead and close off that deal, in the hopes that one day they reach back out to you, or continue the conversation. Now, lastly is, there was a poor sales side on process on your side. Perhaps, things didn't go according to plan. People might have been on lead. Things were misscoped, mismanaged. It does happen. Ideally, we want the sales process to go as smooth as possible, but it does happen where we've lost a deal just due to some fault of our own or the teams, or, things haven't been aligned according to plan. It would be interesting if you guys find that there are any other reasons that have been quite popular into why your deals have been closed lost. So if you have any, feel free to drop it into the comments and let us know some interesting use cases. Now, what I've found, especially from this, is it's important to understand the reason. Now, and you might find that two or three might be a common use case. You might have a budget issue, which was why you've lost it to a competitor, or perhaps due to that poor timing, they've gone ahead and ghosted you. But it's important to understand your deals and understand what is the single reason as to why it was lost. And we'll get into the reasoning for that in a bit. Now, it's all good and well to understand why they've gone to close lost. But Alex, maybe perhaps you can tell us what is the, advantage of capturing key details, and how do you do this in something like HubSpot?
Absolutely. So if you could just go to the next slide, what we typically,
I'll let you share it that way.
perfect.
It'll be easier.
Just give me a second. Sorry about that. Okay, let me just share my screen quick. Perfect. So what we typically find, let me just go into the slide, is the main key properties that we track within HubSpot would be last reason notes, and the RAG status. So I'll go into these in a little bit more detail, and I'll share my screen and I'll show you how to essentially set these up, where to set them up within HubSpot. So typically the first one would be the last reason. So that is, I don't know if you are familiar with your HubSpot portal, or I would recommend you just go and check now, because your last reason is typically a multi-line text that is already created by HubSpot when you purchase your portal. And why I typically recommend you change from a multi-line text to drop down is A, it's easier to input those drop down reasons onto a deal directly, and B, for your reporting purposes. If it does stay as a multi-line text, it does become a little bit of a nightmare when you do want to report, because you have to essentially input that information quite manually. So if it is currently a multi-line text, I recommend you update to a drop down with obviously your internal sales reasons. The second one would be your last reason notes. So this can be a multi-line text, as you're just adding in additional information in combination with your last reason. And I'll show you what that essentially looks like when I demo the HubSpot portal. But let's say you choose the last reason of timing not right, you can add in a note. Maybe check back again in Q3 of 2025. And then the third property, it's something that I've been working on with a few of my own customers. It's something called the RAG status. And that's typically used in project management terms, but it can also be used in your sales processes. It's typically splitting deals in terms of RAG status. So what is meant by that? Red, amber, and green. Red is essentially your deals are not worth revisiting based on your closed loss reason and your notes. Amber, which is essentially there is a potential to revive them, but again, it's based on your reason and your notes. And then green is great opportunity, but there might have been some objections or misalignments in the beginning, but completely worth reaching out to. So I'll just go ahead and demo. Just go back. And I can show you what it means with these three key properties. So within your sales pipeline, you can apply this throughout every stage of your sales pipeline, but for the purpose of this, we'll purely just focus on the closed loss stage. And that's your conditional stage properties. So if I look at this deal here, for example, and it's being moved from pending approval straight through to closed lost, for example. Let's move that. We can see that there are conditional properties that have been applied to that stage. So our own closed lost reasons, which again are drop downs, include no budget, chose competitor, timing not right, no decision maker, product limitation, poor fit, or unengaged. Again, these will be completely dependent on your internal sales processes and what you define as your closed loss reasons, but these are just some that we currently use. And if I choose timing not right, for example, I can add in more information about why the timing was not right. So timing might have not been right indefinitely. It's just the timing is not right now. So you can just say, check back in again with opportunity in, let's say, Q4 2025, and that could just be your additional notes. Now, going back to RAG status, because I'm a little bit of a visual person and I like to color code things, you can leave the RAG status as just a drop down, or you can actually color code them, especially if you want it to look nice in your reports. So timing not right, for example, in my mind, again, based on the reason notes, could be labeled green. And then off the back of that, you could create a task, or you could create a workflow to set a task for one of your sales team members to follow up with that deal if the RAG status is green, for example. If I choose the closed loss reason, let's say chose competitor, I add in the notes. I immediately know that that is going to be red. It cannot be revived because there's no point in the sales team following up with a client that chose a competitor. Something maybe like unengaged could warrant becoming an amber deal, where it's maybe, again, there is a potential to revive, but again, it just depends on the closed last reason notes. And then you would add that, and again, create a task for you, for yourself, or another member of the team, depending on who the deal owner is, to follow up with that deal at a later stage. And again, that's how you would essentially color code your deals and win closed lost deals back.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I find often what happens is coming with the standard HubSpot portal, you get that multi-line text, and
Yeah,
I might write something like chose competitor, someone else might write went with another company, and then if you were to do
exactly.
reporting or anything like that, we're talking the same thing, but all of a sudden we've got all these different options. So from a business perspective, trying to figure out where we can improve and all of that, you don't really have that data that's aiding you in saying, oh, actually, we're losing a lot of our deals to our competitors. Why is that? And what can we do to improve, our performance over our competitors and all of that? So having that drop down is a really useful tool, and it's a quick change just to embed within the portal.
Absolutely. And again, there's just an overall visibility amongst the sales team. Blake, as you mentioned, you're not inputting things manually. It's basically just there's a click of a button, you include the reason. And again, it's so much better to report on because you're not there manually typing the reason and your metrics are completely skewed.
That
Coming
brings
on to
me.
report, oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that does bring up the next point, which is
Yeah,
great, is
exactly.
reporting. I think, especially from a potential sales manager's perspective or something like that. I know that having all of this is great, but from a reporting perspective, how would you recommend tying it all together?
Absolutely. So, I mean, there are two ways that you can utilize the closed lost reasons and let's say the RAG status. Again, if you're not really too keen on the RAG status idea, you can call it something completely else. If you like to color code it, again, you can just label it something that you want to label it as. But when it comes to reporting, as I mentioned, there are two ways that you can report on it. One would be using the sales analytics within HubSpot. And then you go into deals over here, and this will give you some sort of this will give you a few reports on your deal loss reason. So if I click into this one, for example, because it's using the HubSpot default field closed loss reason, it will automatically pull through some metrics based on the reasons that you've inputted. And we can already see there are some deals. So we have around 371 deals with the value for closed lost reason is known. And then again, you can split it by deal owner. You can break it down by the closed lost reason. You can compare it to the year before, just so you can see where you were last year versus the deals that you've lost with a specific reason versus where you are now. And that's how you can essentially track which deals have which sort of reason split by owner or rep. Another way that you can report on this, if it's a bit too sort of standard for you in terms of reporting, you can also create a custom report within HubSpot where you can get a little bit more granular with the type of information that you want to see within the report, and it's not sort of an out of the box report. So you would choose deals as your primary data source. So I would just add that in here as well. Click next. And then again, because you are using the drop-down field for closed lost reason, you can add in your closed lost. I'm just going to use this one that I created for the purpose of this because this HubSpot default one is a multi-line text. So I'll just use this one, split it by closed lost, and then look at the count of deals. Actually, let me move that over here. And then count of deals will come over here. And then this basically shows you the report might be a bit empty, but let's see. So you can see we have one deal, well, actually we have quite a few, with no budget, chose competitor, no decision maker, product limitation, poor fit, and unengaged. And that's essentially how you would split the report based on your closed lost reasons, and to see how many deals you have based on each reason within your specific pipeline. So that's what I meant by changing your closed lost reason from a multi-text to a drop-down. As I mentioned, it just makes reporting like this so much easier. And then the same thing that you can do as well, I'm just going to show you sort of the RAG status element as well. If you, again, a visual person like me, you can also switch out the closed lost, and you can choose the RAG status over here. And that will just, again, break down your deals with red, amber, and green deals, and the count of deals for each RAG status.
I think that's a really nice one because I know from my sales perspective, at the start of every month, you have an area where you can jump into, or quarter, whichever guy you could prefer. And personally, I'm going to look at those that are green as opposed to those first, and then move to amber. And then worst case, if my
Exactly.
pipeline's quite dry, look at the reds and see what we can do. But it's a
Exactly.
nice way to visualize to say, all right, well, this is the bucket of opportunities that we can tap into and see if there's anything that we can reactivate read a bit of the reasoning as well and see, okay, well, it's been some time. Let's go ahead and reach out to them.
Absolutely. And again, it's all nice having these fields, but if you're not tracking them correctly and they're not in the right places, then there's absolutely no point. The data needs to speak for itself. So you just need to ensure that you are tracking that information within HubSpot. And again, there are so many reports that you can essentially choose from, both standard and both custom reports. You can also choose the AI generator if you're not too sure where to start with regards to your sales reporting, you can always utilize that feature. But reporting, again, as we know in HubSpot, is super powerful. So just make sure that you're tracking your insights and your reasons, and everything will speak for itself.
Perfect. Thanks,
Okay.
Alex.
No, sure.
So what I'll do is I'll just I think one also really important thing from a sales perspective, if I just jump in and share my screen again here. So yeah, it's definitely a nice one to also have if you're managing a sales team. You can also look at, closed loss reasons by your team members. So, let's say for example, I am losing a lot of deals because of budgets. As a sales manager, this could also potentially aid in helping, grow the team and see where they may need a little bit of assistance. It could very well be that pricing from a business perspective is either that you've priced yourself out of the market, or you're not reaching the right you contacts or potential opportunities. And so, they might be a small business, but your pricing is set for enterprise, as an example. So it's a nice way to have that reporting and all of that. But what's really important is, now that you have the data in HubSpot, that you can report on it, that you guys do something with it, because that's really where the power of winning these closed loss opportunities come from. So really, there's three buckets into turning these insights into actions. The first is to automate some reactivation strategies. I'm going to be completely honest, saying that I'm in the sales team, and as much as I know that there is an opportunity within closed loss, sometimes I personally will put it into closed loss and my brain's going to forget about it. So, if there is a way that you can automate that outreach, that nurturing, all of that, so that I don't have to do it, and if the prospect happens to re-engage, then I get brought in, I am going to be singing bells and whistles, because it's made my life easier and I can pick it up when it really matters. So some opportunities that you guys can look to explore is, utilizing some email nurtures or sales sequences to continue the conversation. Potentially when you've gone ahead and closed off that deal, and you could set up a task, or enroll them in a sequence that goes off on a particular date, just to check in on how things are going and seeing if you can assist and maybe pull in some useful points that you made from your initial observation. That way it's very personal, it's very one-on-one, and you can continue that sales sequence nurture until they go ahead and respond. It very well might be that they reach out and say, look, we're not interested right now. That's perfect. You can just re-enroll them in a sequence at a later date, forget about them, and then it will go off automatically. If it did happen that one of the reasons were potentially a red on the rag status, as an example, but you still think that there could be potential, business opportunities there, maybe we want to pull them out as an opportunity and reactivate them into the marketing automation. So having them within the inbound nurture, maybe instead of being at decision stage, we start nurturing them through strategic content offers, lead magnets, all of that, sharing our latest blogs, webinars as an example, just to, stay top of mind should they ever need one of your products or services. It's also beneficial utilizing tools, like HubSpot, where you could add them to a list based off the criteria of the closed lost, being the deal being closed lost, and that list automatically pushing to your ad platforms such as Google Ads, LinkedIn, and all of that. From there, you can run some awareness campaigns, retarget them, and you could get really particular on the product or service that they've selected and tailor that to the ads that they're going to see, so that you stay top of mind even when they're not actively uh, on duty and they're more on social media. There's also a great opportunity to use some workflows for reminders and some tasks to revisit or reopen those closed loss opportunities. I'll be the first to say that it is one where I know I'm like, okay, I've got to reach out to them next week and I forget. So it's really important to utilize the tools that you have, creating a task. Let HubSpot remind you when it's time to reach out so you don't have to have that as a placeholder in the back of your mind. Next, what we're going to be looking at is enabling the sales team. Firstly, develop those sales playbooks. It's important that we, as a sales team, have the tools available to navigate any of these possible, reasons for them being closed lost and how to handle them. Also, some training on objection handling can go a long way. If someone pushes back about budget constraints, maybe a phased approach or something smaller is a better opportunity. So, not to just go ahead and disqualify the opportunity, but see how you can rework it into a place that you can still get it over the line and possibly grow over a period of time. Also, it's really important to try and improve that deal qualification criteria. If a opportunity is being qualified and it happens to not be correctly qualified, it's going to cause frustration and friction within the sales team, especially if marketing is passing them over saying, hey, here's a new inquiry we think is good, and the sales team is essentially wasting their time reaching out. It's important to improve that qualification so that when they come through, they're high quality, meet the standards, and move forward. And then lastly, what you would want to do is also just set up a review session with a team on maybe a monthly basis to say, all right, which deals, were lost, what can be reactivated. Have that time set in the diary because we all get too busy to just spend 10, 15 minutes reviewing some of those opportunities that I've lost and see if, oh yeah, actually I spoke to these guys a couple months ago. Great to maybe check out and see if there's something that we can help them with. And lastly, what you might find is that your product and pricing might need to be optimized. It is completely okay that sometimes some of the reasoning for deals being closed lost is that the product needs to be improved. So potentially there's a gap that keeps coming forward that you guys can't handle that might need to be built into the product or service that you guys don't offer. Could be a potential opportunity for growth. And then lastly, flag those reoccurring pricing objections to the team. It might be that, again, you might have priced yourself out of the market. If all of your competitors are offering something and you're offering the same item, but for a lot more, why is that? Understand your value add, understand your pricing, see if there needs to be a bit of an adjustment, or if you need to start looking at your target market in a little bit more in depth so that you can target the right people from there. Perfect. So that's the end of today's webinar. I'm going to just hand it over to you guys. If you have any questions that you would like to ask, feel free to pop them in the Q&A box. And yeah, let us know and we'll be happy to answer them from there. So I'm just going to give that a couple minutes. I'm also going to go ahead and close off the poll. So if you haven't submitted the answers to the polls just yet, go ahead and do that and I'll close it off in a minute. But I hope you guys have enjoyed. And yeah, if there is any questions, feel free to pop them in. Let's go ahead and stop sharing that screen and we'll take it from there as well. Perfect. Let's just go ahead and end this poll. Thank you for everyone who filled it out. That is really interesting. Actually, just before I close it, I'm going to read some of these answers. The majority of you answered that only occasionally you followed up with some closed lost opportunities. There is quite a split there, which is true. We know it's a gold mine, but sometimes we just get so focused on the now that we forget to touch back on that. A few of you have actually tracked your closed loss reasons within HubSpot. So that's really great. Hopefully you have made the change or will make the change and understand the use case of having it as a drop down. That way, no matter who selects the option, it's all going to be the same, easy to report on, and then you get into the nitty-gritty details on that reasoning from there as well. So it's good to see that most of you are doing that. And lastly, have you ever won a previously closed last deal? That is a 50-50 split. Half of you have, half of you haven't. So that's interesting that, the half of you that haven't, it shows that, it is possible and there is some good opportunities there. Perfect. So we've got a question here. How do you assign colors, the RAG status to what they mean and how do you use them properly? So
Yes.
Alex, yeah, maybe you can touch on that.
So basically the RAG status, RAG basically means red, amber, green. How to assign colors to that is essentially when you create a new property or a new drop-down property in HubSpot, you do get the option to actually color code them. So you can use there's a little color circle next to the drop-down option, and you just choose the colors that you want against that drop-down option. And that's essentially how you would create that property. How to use it. As I mentioned, it might just be worth me sharing my HubSpot screen again, just so I can show you where that was currently used in the deal pipeline. So if I go into deals over here, and as I mentioned or I demoed previously, by using conditional deal stage logic, if I move that deal through to closed lost over here, I think I didn't drag it properly. Let me just do that. I moved it through to closed lost. Then we have those 3 key properties that we need to track. And as I mentioned, based on the closed lost reason, you can update the RAG status. So one might find that chose competitor might be a RAG status of red, whereas some might think that unengaged might be amber, because you can always reach back again in a couple of months if they are unengaged. They're not dead, they're just not responsive. So again, that's just something that the sales team can follow up with. And then again, if the timing is not right, you can label that as green. And then again, based on the RAG status, you can create tasks for yourself or other deal owners to follow up with those deals.
Perfect.
I hope that made sense.
Yes, Hiba, the session is recorded, and right after this, yeah, you will receive the recording, and then yeah, you'll be able to watch back on it. Last, but I do want to also touch on is if you guys feel that, or suspect that your HubSpot setup might have some room for improvement, or you're maybe not fully utilizing it, we are offering a free audit to pinpoint those opportunities, across your setup, how to streamline your processes and ensure that you're getting the most out of your HubSpot. So if you're finding, look, we're using HubSpot, but we don't know what we don't know, or we know we're not really utilizing it as much as the tool can offer, feel free to reach out to us. We can book in a HubSpot audit, have a look at it, and we'll present some opportunities that you guys can either go ahead and implement yourself, or chat to us and we can see what we can do. But it's a great opportunity to just make sure you're maximizing your platform and all that it can offer, and you're not bundling into just a few use cases in itself. So if that's you, feel free to reach out. We'll have a link in this with the call recording that's sent to you afterwards. So yeah, it would be good to go. But if there's no other questions, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure hosting you today. I hope that you have you enjoyed it. I hope you learned some new things. Have a lovely rest of your Wednesday. Good luck in closing those deals over the next 3 days. I fully support you and believe in you. So best of luck. Have a good one. And yeah, we'll see you guys soon.
Yeah, thank you all for joining. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Bye.